Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Therapist and the Counselor podcast. Jesse O.
This is good. No, this is the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, we're trying to get our intro down. We're trying to boom.
We're trying to shake off. It's a Sunday. We're trying to shake off, I guess, the Sunday chill vibes or goofy vibes that we have right now.
You're on 10 Red Bulls, right?
I'm going to be sponsored by Ghost Energy, possibly Bang Energy.
You got a problem.
I've got a problem. It's the last thing I hold on to these days is caffeine, so it's my one vice.
Yeah. What are we going to talk about today, Jess?
So today, first, a little self-reflection on a couple things. First off, we're never going to do a pound or a handshake or a high five. We realize that we have a very awkward ending to all these podcasts.
Realize that. I think I'm still down for the pound.
I'm not down for the pound. No? I'm just not going to. It's not going to happen. So.
Well, I think if we have enough people watching, we should have a vote.
Like a signature move at the
end? Yeah, okay.
Like Carlton and Fresh Prince?
We don't have to have a signature move, but I just want to know if people like the pound or not.
Sorry, it wasn't even Carlton and Fresh Prince. It was Fresh Prince and it was DJ Jazzy Jeff.
Oh, yeah. See?
They had the psh.
Yeah. Best, people who are homies, they got it. Football, you see it all the time. You do a sack, you celebrate with the little
This is not, we're not football players.
You're right.
That's very obvious.
That's true.
I wanted to reflect on something I mentioned. I'm going to make 100 mistakes throughout this time.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. I made a comment about nostalgia being the worst form of conversation. Now I'm being nostalgic thinking about an earlier episode. It's the statement is actually the quote. Do you remember me saying this?
I do remember.
It's actually, do you remember is the worst form of conversation. If you're in a conversation, so this is, do you remember? It's that was the Tony Soprano quote. But this leads into this. Do you remember our first episode so many years ago?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a couple years ago, right?
That was back in 1999.
Dang, I was 10.
Yeah, NSYNC was number 1 on the charts. No, but in the first episode, we talked about why we do this.
Yeah.
And I believe I shared why we do this, my thoughts on it. But there was a time in that conversation where I turned to you, and I still don't know why the fuck you do this. So today, I think the goal is there is a goal to this podcast. Yeah. We're on a mission. We're on a mission.
We are on a mission.
So I want to throw it over to you. So kind of jumping off from that episode, why, what is our mission statement here throughout our podcast?
I probably do a good job of deflecting whenever people ask me questions. I wrap it up and I throw it back at you. I think that's probably why we miss that. But I would say I guess to kind of condense it a little bit, I would say why I'm a therapist. I didn't start really knowing or even learning why I stay a therapist until in the middle of my journey of becoming a therapist.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I think anyways,
it is. No, it is. It is because the way I was looking at school when I went to school was I didn't get the best grades in high school, and I was on track to not even graduate.
Yeah.
And so the last 2 years I finally got my shit together, turned in my assignments, got good grades, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. I'm going to try community college.
Yeah.
And I messed around at community college, was there for 4 years, supposed to be 2 years, extended to 4 years. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to apply for university because it'll make my parents proud. And that's what they've been wanting me. They've been shaping me to do that. But there was never this desire to become this I'm going to be a therapist. It was just I failed out of biology, failed out of math. Psychology was interesting and it was easy for me. And I was like, okay, I could, it'd be kind of cool to study psychology. I looked at the requirements to become a psychologist, a PsyD, it was a doctorate degree. I was like, ain't no way I'm ever doing that. I just can't. I don't have the capabilities to be, I'm not that smart.
Hey, man.
That's what it was, though. Okay, that's what it, yeah. That was old, man.
Being honest.
Yeah. And so I went to college, figured it out, went to university, little by little, just kind of started getting a little more confidence. And my options were to become a social worker or a therapist. Those were just the options that I had with a psychology degree. So I was like, okay, let me go see this therapy stuff. It sounds kind of cool to talk to people, to help people. And I went to a program and I was learning. It was awesome. and they were like, a part of the program is to go see a therapist.
Okay.
And so that was the part where that was the first time I've ever talked to a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, it was a real uncomfortable for me.
Right.
So in that process, trying to make this as short as possible, in that process,
Yeah.
I just figured out how cool therapy was, like what therapy really was, like what it really felt like, and like how much I learned about myself, how much it pushed me to grow, how much like I cried, vulnerable I got, like I just fell in love with that part of the process.
I don't know if this is like the right time, but I guess I'm gonna go with it. Like, what was for you in the time? What was your preconceived notion about therapy? Like, I know, like, I guess I'll just use the example as being like an addiction counselor. A question I'll ask clients often was like, what was your first example of an alcoholic? And some people might actually be like my mom or dad, but sometimes it's like I remember that guy with the brown paper bag. So that would be like an addict, an example of an addict. So for you, what was your preconceived notions about therapists, or what was therapy before walking into that room? If you could even
that's a good question. I think, and we got another episode we're coming on with talking a little bit about this. So I won't jump too much into it. Yeah. But I think like on the inside, I didn't really feel like therapy was just for crazy people, like, a lot of people say, because I was a therapist. Like I just couldn't go in a mindset thinking that. So I didn't think that way, but I feel like deep down, I felt too good for therapy.
Okay.
I was like, I got my shit together.
I feel you on that one.
Like I got my shit together. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
It kind of was. I'm not crazy. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm in college. Like I'm checking all the boxes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's all good. It's all good. So that was it. And so like I honestly felt like I feel like I was going to go to therapy if I had like some sort of really bad problem. I couldn't have a job. I couldn't hold down a family. I couldn't like I was really depressed. I feel like that's when you go see a therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really know like how deep you get into, like how I didn't even know some of the level of awareness of some of the deeper insecurities that I had as a man.
Right.
So I'll leave it there just because I know we're going to go into that.
Keep going. Yeah.
So I would say like it was probably my second year in grad school.
Yeah.
I started going to therapy, and that's when I really kind of decided, like, you know what, I want to be I like that I'm going to be a therapist because like more people need to be in a room like this. Like if I would have known about this resource and how helpful it was and how awesome it felt, like I would have done this a long time ago.
Right.
And a part of me still thinks that a lot of people like almost everyone can benefit from talking to someone professional. Just because we all go through shit. We all have struggles. And like ever since then, I think that was like kind of why I am a therapist. It's like, I just think people need to have this resource. And, if I'm doing a good job and if I'm growing and if I'm helping someone in the way that I'm supposed to be, then therapy is going to go very well for them. And they're going to learn a lot about themselves, and they're going to come out a better person because of it. Yeah. So that's my reason, man.
There you go. Yeah. All right, end of the show. No, just kidding. Like so that's why you do this. So with that being said, the idea of why we're sitting down, I mean, part of it, like I think I joked with you, is like we can get out of the house.
Yeah.
But there's something that we want to do with this.
It's the reason we're here.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to take it and just roll with it a little bit there? Yeah,
I think so just for people to know, like this is our first time, probably our second time really putting words into like why we're doing this. Yeah. So we're going to fumble a little bit with it, but my hope is that like we have an intention that we both kind of agree on, and it'll probably evolve and develop even as we continue to do this.
Right.
But I think, what comes to my mind is really, I guess, demystifying what a therapist is to people and what a counselor is to people.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of awareness already, growing awareness every day about the need for mental health.
Yeah.
But I still think people don't even, like, there's still preconceived notions about, like, how a therapist is, like how a therapist talks, what a therapist does when they're not
Right.
doing therapy. Like we're human too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have so much in common with everybody in this world. Like we're people, like
Right.
everybody else.
Yeah.
But I don't know that gets seen a lot. Like if people knew that you go talk to a dude, you know, and have a conversation with a dude about life,
Right.
I feel like they'd be a little more receptive to calling a therapist or making it a part of their life.
Yeah. I think I might have brought it up. We do this. We do talk about like the episode, what we're going to do with it, but we had talked about the idea of the self-help movement. It's growing more and more, but I think there's still like a lot of unawareness. I actually think about like this client that I had last year. She was like 19, and I asked her just like point blank, like, do you feel like because there's so much more awareness of if it's social media, just mental health, anxiety, depression, whatever, like, do you think there's improvements? And the girl just flat out said no. Like, and you know, this was just one person, but what she's growing up around and seeing, like, yeah, there's some awareness, but there's still the same issues I think that you probably grew up with, that I grew up with, just because there's so much more availability to it. There's still like an uncertainty of what this even means. So there are tons of podcasts out there. I just thought that the format that we're going to try to push, when I say push, like with our fucking agenda, but like the agenda is just to help, to raise awareness and to bring people into the rooms. Cause has anybody ever sat into a therapy session or a group session? What does that even mean? What does that
look like?
What does that look like? So we had grabbed some breakfast with one of our peers, a friend of ours, and we were just kind of bouncing off ideas with them just to let people know how this came about. And we were talking, and I said something like the idea of when people go to where I work often is the treatment centers, a group room. The idea of a group, people so often are like, how do I take this outside with me into everyday life?
I wish there was something else like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there are some things, there are self-help groups like AA, other things like that. So I wanted to somewhat, with this podcast, is like open the door to what it looks like to have like-minded people sitting down, sharing how they feel, discussing numerous topics about life. And just, that's my hope with this. I'll just call it somewhat of a movement, and what we're doing with this podcast. That's what I think a mission statement for me that somewhat comes up. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the mental health, like you said, the mental health movement is growing. There's a lot more awareness now than when I was little and when you were 30. But I think like right now where it's at, I feel like it's at a place where people know therapy's good for you, right?
Yeah, I'd say.
But they just I feel like they just know to say that. Like it's just the thing to say. It's almost like the hot thing to say is like therapy is good. Like it's okay to see a therapist. Like, and that, I feel like that's where we're at, where it's like, I wonder how many of those people actually go to therapy. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think a lot of times too, it's just the idea of like people, they'll go, oh, well, yeah, I'm looking into getting a therapist.
Yeah.
That's a good line to give anybody to get somebody off your ass for a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm looking into therapy. I don't know how many times I said that before. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this, I swear. So, and there are some hurdles sometimes you got to jump through with that stuff. But yeah, no, it's not a bad thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing to say I have a therapist. I'm sure there's probably a view by some people that still see it as like, oh shit, you're going with a therapy?
Yeah.
There's a part of the world where it's like, oh man, that person needs to go to therapy. Like their shit is really messed up. So, which, like I said, with the awareness, you're hoping that's crushing that. But I mean, but once again, stigmas are still going to stick, and you could chip away with that stuff over time, and awareness, and just being honest with people and about that. But there's still a hurdle. I believe.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. So. And that when you talk about purpose and mission, it's like, like how can we be a part of the movement, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like you have a personality, I have a personality,
oh, yeah.
and we, like we could bring something that like isn't there already,
Yeah.
right? Like there's someone maybe who's listened to some therapist out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, not my thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, maybe I should talk to a therapist, but like this just doesn't seem like it fits me, right? And
Right.
so I get a lot of feedback sometimes of like, man, you're just like a dude, like you're just a guy that I talk to, and you know we've been in rooms where it's like guys like hard as hell, like you know bearded Harley Davidson like riders, and like we're giving them a unique experience. They're connecting with us because of our personality. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, we're not like, we don't present it. We're not wearing a tie and like, you know, having them lay down on the couch or even asking a question like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's just a different, like,
Do you still say that shit? Do people still say that?
sometimes when I'm stuck, I'm like, what do I gotta ask something right now? I'm like, and what's that feel like?
Being a counselor, I know that's like one of those statements that people will just be completely turned off by. But I've said that like
Yeah.
multiple times, and I'm good with it. Like
Yeah.
it's all in the way that you use it, no
Yeah.
way that you say it. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think but there's a lot to that statement right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there really
how does it
is.
make you feel? Because people don't know what they're feeling. They
Yeah.
think they have some insight on like their emotions, but like besides your sadness and happiness and probably anger and fear, a couple other things, people really don't know what. I believe people don't know what they're feeling.
Yeah.
You know, people can say, I know what anxious feels like, but I didn't know what anxiety was
That's
until
true.
much later, until somebody actually said, this is probably anxiety. So I think that is still like, I know it gets like, oh no, seriously, you're going to say that? You're going to use that line? Like, it's the worst pickup line, like
Yeah.
at a bar, but it resonates. I think
Yeah,
it
very
is.
true.
So
I'm gonna ask you a question. You're currently working
I got
as
a job.
group
Hell yeah.
facilitator,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
Do you feel, did any part of you wanting to do this on the topic of like, you know, our mission, do you feel like you weren't doing enough
As in, mean, like as a group facilitator, or do you mean like?
as like what you wanted to do? Like when you think about like you being in a position, like you're not here on a Sunday, like putting in time, spending away from your daughter because you're a POS dad. You know what I mean? Like you're like
Deadbeat
like,
daddy.
like did you ever feel like, man, like group is cool and all, but like I wish I could do more, or I wish I could like reach more people? I don't know what that looked like for you.
Yeah,
Like,
I think probably part of this podcast as well is that growth.
Okay.
I think it's a consistent. I hope that people through the process of counseling, therapy, whatever you want to call it, I believe like that's the end goal, is always learning, and that's never going to stop until I believe the day that we die.
yeah,
So I think progress is needed for me. I feel like I've found a niche like in running groups. I think I provide I think I'm pretty damn good at what I do,
yeah,
but I want to reach a bigger audience, and share what I've seen, what I've experienced, what I know, and through this process as well, and like bringing on guests, like this is once again like crafting like a better
Yeah.
me throughout this process.
Yeah.
So that's my goal in bringing different therapists and people in the mental health field, addiction field, and
Yeah.
and expand more and more. But yeah, no, I feel like there is probably a ceiling. I'm sitting here at 45. There comes a point where I'm just like, what comes next for me? I think I've said this often too, because I've been running groups for so many years. I'm like, what comes next?
Right.
I think administratively, it's like the idea how about this? There's a fear that like, as I get older, like I won't be able to like do what I do in groups anymore. So I guess I'm looking for that next step. But that's also like really kind of ageism in some
You
ways.
feel like though?
Yeah,
Like, I
for
feel like
sure.
as you get older, you get wiser, dude. Like,
maybe, and this is probably something for another time, but sometimes I feel like there's like an age discrimination often. So I feel like part of my like vibe has been
you
like,
disconnect less and less.
yeah,
with
like
people.
I feel like I've been able to I can connect with an 18-year-old, and I can also connect with like a 79-year-old. So, which is
Yeah.
like very powerful, I
Yeah.
believe. So I think there's that fear of always just like not being as strong, but That's like another topic for
I know.
the time.
Soon you're gonna be in a group. They're gonna be calling you pops. You know, I'm like pops over
I get
here.
to call all the young people young bloods though, so I really enjoy that. So, but no, yeah, I want growth though.
Yeah.
I want to expand, and to me, and why I do this also is change. I found it in counseling. I mean, sure, that might sound a little ego driven, like I need an audience and I need a crowd.
You come from the performance industry,
but that's the thing though. Like I was able to like give something to people, and ways they give back. Like to me before it was music, and then with counseling, it was like I was able to like help people, and within that, helping myself. So
one of the things we talked about like why we do this too, that comes to mind right now is showing people what a therapy room looks like, or even what a group therapy room looks like. Can you talk about like what do people need to know about like maybe someone who's never been in a group before? Like what will we do in here that will like be similar to that? Like
I think that's kind of what I was saying a little bit, the idea of just that like I guess goes back to that kind of mission statement. People come into a group because if it's a group regarding addiction or codependency or a grief and loss group, people come in like-minded and they want to share their stories, and through sharing and expressing and getting to see other people's experiences, there's like an automatic like education right there in that. So, and I think that by bringing people into the group room or a therapy session room, and it is different, and we'll talk about that another time, but it is that idea of, once again, it's just like growing together. I heard this quote. It was said like, you don't always have to be yourself, but sometimes just be the group, because throughout whatever you're experiencing in life, like you might not have the strength to do it on your own. And that's that group mentality. I say so often to people that are going through addiction, like we've got to build a fucking army for this thing, and that's through support, and that's group. So this podcast would introduce people that have ran groups, who have sat in groups, and that's kind of everything in those group rooms happens. So much happens in those rooms. So let's like show people that through this process as well.
I think we talked about possibly having some conversations where like you counsel me,
and
then I give you some therapy, and it's never gonna be like real therapy, just because like you're my friend and I can't separate myself from you enough to be your therapist. But therapeutic conversations, right? Like therapeutic questions or thought-provoking questions that you might experience similar when you go to therapy, right? Like giving people a glimpse of what that looks like.
There's a big ethical piece to that too, in the sense like, that couldn't really happen because we know each other outside of this, and our connection as friends. So but I think, do you think we nailed it down with the mission?
I think so. This is, and like I said, it's going to evolve all the time, right? And we're going to probably change to make it a little more succinct or whatnot. But this is a good discussion around that. That way, also people know like why the hell they're tuning into us. Like, why am I going to go see the therapist and Mr. Therapist and the Counselor podcast? So perfect, man.
We'll get the name down right next time too.
There you go. We will.
We have a whiteboard over there because I was like not feeling it for a little bit, but I didn't even need that whiteboard. But we might need it for you with the title of this podcast right there.
We need someone with cue cards and shit.
Yeah, but listen, the self-help movement, like it's strong, but actually there's no but. It's strong. I just think that we could add more like ammunition to it. I don't know why I did a gun thing.
Damn,
right there.
Bro, I love it.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, cool, dude.
All right.